Welcome to the Odd Life Podcast. That's AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. We're here to have conversations to inspire women of all ages to live odd AF. I'm your host, Hallie, and thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Hallie. My guest today is Mallory Andrews. Mallory is someone I met in Panama at the Samsara retreat that I went on back in March. And I've been following her story ever since. When I met her, it was interesting. There were so many things about us that were similar. She just was going through things now that I've been through maybe 10 years ago. And so I recognized a lot of myself in her, but also she's now just taking off in her life. She is showing up online and expressing herself. And I'm just really proud of her. I knew I needed to have her on the podcast because she is right now becoming her most authentic self. And it's been so great to watch. And so I wanted her to share her story with you today because I want you to see what she's come from and all the hard things that she's done to get herself here to where now she is living an awake, well, and empowered life. And she's the girl next door. She's every woman. She is just like you and I. And she's been through some hard things, and I wanted to share her story with you all. So thanks for being here. Here's my conversation with my friend, Mallory Andrews. Well, welcome, Mallory. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. This is my friend, Mallory from Panama. She was there with me for the Samsara retreat. I really connected with Mallory. The reason why I want to have her on the podcast is we have a lot of similar views about things, and also just recognize what she's going through in life. I feel like so many things that she's learning right now about herself are going to be so helpful for all of you. So Mallory, tell us just a quick brief who you are, where you live, your dynamics of your life right now so we can get a picture of who you are.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, Hallie. I'm very honored to be a guest on your pod. So I am a mother, I guess first and foremost, to three wonderful kids. My kids are a little bit older now, 16, 14, and 11. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I have been married for 18 years. I live in Virginia Beach. I'm primarily, I don't love the term stay-at-home mom, but that has, for lack of a better term, that's what I found myself doing for the past 16 years. And recently, I've been really going through a significant personal journey, and I've added some other things to my life. So I feel like I'm not just a mom. I've got some other things going on now that I'm doing that bring me a lot of joy, but primarily mom.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I did that for many, many years as well. And that's a big part of what I want to talk about too, is just that role and how it's shifted for you. But I want to start really at the beginning of you. There's a lot that you've shared, that you've talked about your childhood and how you grew up and how that affected you. And I think it says so much about why you're in the position you're in right now and why you're going through this sort of deep dive into who you are because of how you grew up. Can you go into that a little bit, what that looked like and how that affected you? And how it's carried into your adult life?
I grew up in a conservative evangelical environment. And there are things about that that are good and values that I have that I'm grateful that I have. But I think my personality took the environment that I was in and I was very sensitive to it. And I allowed it to really influence me deeply into what I thought a good Christian woman or girl was. And so from a very early age, I was very perceptive to the examples I had around me. And I began to notice very early on, particularly in the environments I was in. I know not every Christian community is the same way, but in the environments I was in, I noticed that I didn't look like the good Christian girls. I didn't dress like the good Christian girls. I had a bigger personality. I liked the spotlight. Just nothing about me felt like it was that. And I realized pretty early on that in order to survive and to be respected or considered successful in this context, I really needed to stuff down who I was because who I really was not accepted in this space. And so I began to hide who I was, stuff down certain parts of my personality, or even tame down the way I wanted to dress or the music I liked. Things like that seem very simple, but I began to edit them out of myself and just put on mask after mask to try to survive in this environment. And I really wanted to be good and I really wanted to be holy. And I don't know, all of those words that you might want to describe yourself as when you're really trying to live a sincere Christian lifestyle and faith, which I was for my entire adult life until my recent deconstruction. But
Yep, yep.
yeah, it was pretty stifling, I've come to realize.
Absolutely. And you think about when you're that age, this is a time to figure out who you are. And I think so many of us, my generation's Gen X, you're millennial, but I do feel like there's this unspoken expectation of what you're supposed to be. We look a certain way, we act a certain way, you don't stand out, you fit in, don't be different. Don't be different, be like everybody else. And I don't know if this is like for you, but when I was younger, I felt like we don't want to hear from you. We don't want to know your opinion. Your opinion doesn't matter. And so I felt like we're sort of at the point we're trying to figure ourselves out. We're told to be quiet. We're told to be a certain way. And how are we supposed to find out who we are if we're not allowed to express our true selves? It sounds like that was for you, is that you're stuffing this away of who you really are and what you wanted to be. And that goes forward. And then you just carry that on to adulthood and you've lost that amazing experience of self-expression.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I didn't really go through that process that I think air quotes normal development that happens when you're a young adult or early adult. I
Yeah.
didn't really have that experience. And then I got married at 21. So
Yeah.
the train left the station and I was just sort of left to figure it out
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. And that's my next question is, you went from this sort of household now to getting married so young. How did that path then carry into marriage? What you learned as a young adult, a young child, how did you bring that into your marriage?
Yeah, I received very specific guidelines for
Mm-hmm.
what my role should be as a wife. So when I got married at 21, I was following in my parents' footsteps because they got married at 21. And I
Mm,
thought, well, this is what we do in our culture and in my family. And that's what was praised and valued was marriage. And my sister had gotten married at 21. So I was
mm,
just following right in the family footsteps and thinking I was making a really great choice. And in hindsight, whether it was a good choice or not, I won't even try to answer that, but it's been a difficult journey that we've had to walk. I'll say that and we can come back to that later. As a young 21-year-old getting married, I wanted to be the best wife that I could be and the best mom that I could be. And those things really went hand in hand in my worldview that I had at the time.
mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have kids right away. And that's what I thought my path should be. That's again what I inherited. And so we got into having kids really quickly. And I think the part that I wish had been different looking back is that I just wish I had had more self-awareness and
Mm-hmm.
that I knew myself better.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just didn't know. I was
Yes.
just so young and I hadn't really gone through that differentiation process from my parents. I was this little clone of what I had inherited and that's what I took with me. And I didn't know how problematic it was going to be until 18 years later.
I know. I know. I get that totally. I went from home, college, sorority, didn't really know who I was, didn't get a chance to know who I was, and then got married right after college. And I was 25 when I got married versus the 21, and I had zero time on my own too. So I totally get that. When you said that, I was like, yes, that's exactly it. And I tell these young women that I come across, you have the gift of being by yourself and learning who you are. Do not wish that away. That was something I never got. And I wish I would have had that time to really spend with myself and figure out, what do I want? What do I want to go do in the world? And then I set myself on that path. And then the person gets to come into that. And I've already established who I am. Because I think when you come into it not really knowing who you are, then you're able to become anything. I don't know if you found this too, but I morphed into whoever I was with.
Yes. Yes.
And my husband, and the friends we made, I just became a version of them. And I think that's maybe part of why later we go, hold on a second. What am I doing? Not knowing who you are and going through the motions of life for so long. It sucks. And you don't know it sucks until later. And you look back going, oh my God, how did I not know? I had no clue what I was doing, or I was following everybody else's path and not my own. Is that how you felt a little bit? Like, when did you have that moment? Did you have a moment where you said, oh, hold on a second, I'm going down the wrong path here? Like, what was it for you that kind of said,
I
stop here
think,
for a second.
yeah, absolutely. I think I had sort of a low grade dissatisfaction with my life going on from the very beginning. It would somewhat ebb and flow depending on the season. You know, when you have a bunch of little kids and you're just surviving. I mean, I think some of your personal desires die down a little bit because you're just so in the moment. But this low level dis-ease with my life was just constant. And I was wanting something more, but I didn't know how to access it. I felt stuck and trapped in the motherhood journey. I loved that I got to be home with my kids, but I also felt profound boredom at times
Mm-hmm.
and just this restlessness. Like I am meant to do something else, but I don't know what it is and I don't know how to access it. So yes, there was just profound perpetual struggle that I
Yeah.
lived in internally, but you would have never known it on the outside. Everything looked totally fine and
Yep.
perfect family.
Yep.
But inside, I just had this sense that something was really off and I didn't quite know how to fix it.
Yeah. So you did change, you did pivot at one point. What was that moment for you like, and what was it specifically? Was there something that finally said, I can't do this anymore? Because you were homeschooling your kids too, right? So it
Yes.
wasn't just being a mom, you were also homeschooling. So you had another huge role on top
Yeah.
of everything.
Yeah, we did homeschool for 3.5 wonderful years. And during that time, I actually found a lot of satisfaction in that. And it was
Mm-hmm.
very rewarding for me. It did end up being a season for our family. And when that season came to an end and my children went back to school, I found myself for the first time, really, because when my children were homeschooling and before that they were in preschool or, I had a child home with me. So when they went back to school, I suddenly had 7 hours a day where there was some freedom. And for the first year, I was going through a lot of personal pain. My parents had recently divorced. And I'd spent a year basically healing personally from a lot of this stuff that was coming up for me. And after about a year of therapy and healing and a lot of other stuff we could get into, it finally felt time for me. Like I had enough emotional resource within myself to branch out and try some new things.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't just want to continue to be the stay-at-home mom now that my children were back in school. And now that I was 16 years into the journey of being a
Sure.
mom,
Sure.
I wanted to do something else. And so I got involved with some commercial buildings that my husband and I bought, and I manage those myself. And I started my Life by Mallory Instagram, which has been so fun for me. And I've started my Substack. So I've been writing, and all of that just feels like a really great combination of creativity and outlets for
Yeah.
me that are very life-giving.
Yeah. It's like you knew you had a voice, but you didn't feel like you were allowed to use it. Or I'm speaking for myself, not for you necessarily, but I understand this piece and being able to finally express yourself in a way that feels like it's just for you. That's what made me feel really rewarded by having a different Instagram than my personal stuff and having writing and having a blog and all that. I feel like it's something that is it's a giving back to yourself in a way that you've wanted this whole time and something
Yes.
that's just yours. It's not tied to your family. It's not tied to anything outside of just you. And
Yeah.
that's got to feel pretty good.
It feels so good. I completely agree. Yeah. I had the private Instagram that was just pictures of my family and, that whole deal. And I just knew that it was time to have some things for myself that were separate from my family. That was really a big deal for me to start doing things like that because my entire identity had been enmeshed with my family. I didn't have any sense of identity of my own. And yeah, those things were very important for me to do.
Yeah. Let's go back to your parents just for 1 second.
Yeah.
When they divorced, I did hear you talk about this one time and just felt like, hold on, was my whole childhood a lie? Right? So you've been told to be this way and behave this way and have these things in your life and show up in your life this way. And then hear your parents get divorced. Like the people that are supposed to be the pinnacle of the examples for you, and not to
Yeah.
throw your parents under the bus, but what was that like for you at that moment?
Yeah, it was very painful. It wasn't a complete surprise. I knew that it was probably coming. However, even as an adult, and I think particularly when you were raised in a culture like I was, where a divorce was not an option. We grew up hearing, you never think or say the D word. So I thought divorce was just, I mean, it was off the table. And so for my parents to actually get divorced, it was incredibly destabilizing for me. It was like my entire foundation of what is true was blown up. And it felt like my life exploded when they divorced. And that might sound silly or like an overstatement, but it really, really was a profound impact on me.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of grief because in my case, there were severed relationships that came with that divorce. And so my family of origin truly did implode, and
Mm-hmm.
we no longer can get together, all of us, or, all the siblings with one parent. So it was a huge loss in my life. And it also, though, I can truly say that that was 3.5 years ago. It set off my own personal awakening journey because it really allowed me to examine all of the things that I grew up accepting as true, or just the beliefs and the expectations. And it gave me permission to re-examine all of it and see
Yeah.
what was truly for me at this point in my life. If they had not divorced, I honestly think I may still be sort of under my old facade, keeping up appearances and just gritting my teeth and bearing it, trying to make it all work and stay stuffed in that box.
Yeah.
So I really do credit their divorce with allowing me to break free myself. I'm really grateful for
Isn't that
that
crazy?
permission it gave me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how, like, I had a moment where I did see somebody that's in my life show up differently. It was a second marriage, and that marriage, they were a whole new different person, and in a good way. And I thought, oh my gosh, how many years were they truly unhappy and suffering because it was the right thing to do? And I was close to 40 at that time. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to wake up someday and be 80 years old and go, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done things differently. And that was my moment. I started to allow myself to say no to things because I finally realized I do have agency. I have a choice. I don't have to do the things. Even getting together with family, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
And it wasn't until I think I saw that example of what life could look like on the other side if I was allowing myself to have a voice and make choices that I was finally going to live the life I wanted. And I'm seeing that with you, is like your parents' situation was like, okay, they made a choice, even though it sucked in the moment, and it still probably sucks to deal with the aftermath of it. But oh my gosh, like, I don't want to have that be my story down the road because I didn't use my voice or I didn't speak up for myself when I needed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I don't want to be stuck in a marriage that's not healthy just
Yeah.
to say that I'm not divorced.
That's
If
right.
I'm in my marriage, I'm choosing to be in my marriage because it's a healthy marriage. I never want to feel like I'm doing something just because it's the right thing to do, even if I'm
Sure.
miserable.
Well,
Yeah.
I tell myself that's going to show up in another way, somehow, some way. Like the unhappiness, the disconnect, the misalignment with my life, it's going to show up physically, mentally. It's going to show up somehow, and then I'm going to suffer for it. So I
Sure.
might as well get it out now and deal with the
Mhm.
uncomfortableness of it. That
Yeah.
way I get to stay healthy and I get to be in a good headspace down the road for long term. And so it's a short term discomfort to have a lifetime of feeling much better. I wonder how much of our physical ailments come from just stuffing things away and from holding on to things and not expressing and living a life that we're not meant to be living because of what we're not dealing with and we're not sharing and we're not talking about. Something about that just sits with me for some reason.
Mhm.
And it's pushed me to have difficult conversations because I don't want it to stay stuck inside me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I've experienced that to some degree as well. And I agree. You've got to get it out and let your truth be out in the open and not keep things,
Bottled up.
bottled up.
If you have friends or want to have more friends, which I assume is pretty much everybody, I want to let you know about one of my favorite podcasts, Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendships. Nina talks with a variety of guests who are here to help us find, keep, and grow our friendships. She covers a wide range of topics, all related to friendships that can help you in young adulthood all the way through the empty nest and beyond. Her weekly episodes have been a cornerstone of my own podcast listening, and I hope you take a moment to check her out. Of course, the link to her podcast is in the show notes. Now, back to the show. Yeah. And speaking of health, you told me about this in Panama, and I was like, oh my God, you had a major health crisis at one point. How long ago was this?
Yeah, I had a lot of strange things happen to me. About years ago. I don't know if you're referring to my hormone collapse or the artery injury.
Yeah, I think the artery collapse completely, overshadowed the other thing, but yes.
Yeah, I had an carotid artery dissection, which is just a freak injury. Not exactly sure what caused it. My artery tore and it could have led to a stroke. And it was really serious and
Yeah.
scary. I had these strange neurological symptoms that were happening. And I ended up making a full recovery, but it forced me to only walk for almost a year. That was the only physical activity I could do. And it really slowed me down and caused me to be super grateful that I was alive and didn't have a stroke.
Yeah.
That's really when I got into my walking practice because that's all I could do. And it became a lifeline for me. In the same time period in my life, it's like everything just sort of unraveled at once. But that was something that ended up giving me this walking practice that
Yeah.
I love and is
Yeah.
one of
Every
the
morning,
main
right?
pillars every morning.
Yeah.
Every morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really for my mental health more than any kind of physical. I mean, I know it's so good for my physical health, but it's like almost a spiritual
Yeah.
thing for me.
I get that. When you walk, do you have headphones? Do you walk in silence? Like, what's your routine there? Or is it vary?
I do normally wear headphones and I typically am listening to music. I like to really jam out on my morning walks.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
in the evening, I will sometimes go with just nature because those are a cool down walk. My morning walks I'm really getting my heart going and getting my energy
Yeah.
out.
I kind of tend to go back and forth. Some days I just need calm and quiet, like almost meditative in the
Yeah.
morning to get my mind right. And then there's other days, same thing. I'm like, podcasts. What can I listen to that's getting me motivated for my day? Mine's a quick little walk with the dogs. They can handle about a mile and a half because they're two big ones. And so by the mile and a half, I'm dragging them back to the house. So I don't get very far in the morning, but then I'll drop them off and I'll continue to go. I don't do that every morning. I do walk them every morning. But yeah, so I get that. And then in your other thing, your hormones. I don't think I knew about the hormone situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I realized I was having some strange symptoms that prompted me to go to the doctor, and they ended up doing hormone testing for me and an ultrasound, and they were shocked because I was 37 at this time and the hormones came back that of a postmenopausal woman.
No.
And yes, and I was shocked myself. I mean, I knew it was something hormonal going on because I was having really long gaps in my cycle, but I was not expecting to hear that. And I was told that because of my age, I would need to go on hormone replacement therapy. It's called premature ovarian insufficiency is the diagnosis,
Okay.
which is essentially very, very early menopause. And I was just stunned. I had been a healthy person prior to that. And I mean, I still am healthy, but it rattled me quite a bit to know that I was going to have to be on these hormones. I was quite scared to start that. I've liked to do things naturally if possible. And so it was just a big adjustment to realize, okay, I need to take these because the benefits outweigh the risk and I'm young and I need estrogen and all these things. But it just was another layer of something going on at that same time of, okay, now you're going to have a massive hormonal change during this time of a lot other stuff going on. There was my parents' divorce in the aftermath and stuff going on in my own marriage. And it truly was like my therapist said, it was like the game Boggle. I don't know. Do you know that game, the Boggle? And she was like, it's like your Boggle board got shaken up all at the same time. And every piece of your life sort of was just turned upside down. It's really how it felt. So yes, the hormones were just another fun piece of that to be like, okay, you're going to crash and go into menopause at 37 years old.
And not even like, and no preparation. Was there something before that? Did you feel like for a while? Or what was your...
There were definitely things that were happening before that. And I even brought them up. I mean, I noticed my cycle started to get really close together in my early 30s, like unusually close together. But I would bring it up and they were like, yeah, no, normal. And I don't know that there was anything they really would have done for me at that point anyways. But there were things that were happening that I noticed, changes in my sleep and just some other things that I really was in perimenopause in my early 30s.
Yeah. Gosh, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know. Now now, the perimenopause conversation is everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. And you don't realize there's things attached to that. Like you have plantar fasciitis. You just think that, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And then you have like the most random shit happening
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it's all connected because it's
Right.
happening at different wonky times. And then you realize, oh, wait, those are all signs telling me your hormones are changing. And I
Yes.
wish I would have known then to go get them tested. I went to a naturopath with mine and I started to do some seed cycling and things like that. But I think I was too far gone. It wasn't like I was just a little off. I was like, things were in a deep dive at that point, and everything was turning upside down for me hormonally. So I get that. I always heard of hot flashes and like the night sweats with menopause. And I had no idea there's all these a laundry list of signs that you're heading that direction. Women, we get so screwed. I listened to this the other day as I heard this thing called we're in cougar puberty. It's a really hard thing to say together, but it is. It's like the opposite. You're going through puberty,
Yeah.
but it's the other way. And your
Right.
hormones are not ramping up. They're taking a nosedive. And so it's the other direction. And now here we are trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So unfair.
Yeah, it's not fair at all. I know. So you've had a couple of wonky things. And this is all happening
Yeah.
in your 30s when you're raising your kids. And it's not like you have got kids out of the house. You're in the heart of motherhood too. So
Yeah.
there's so much going on for you at this point.
Yeah. There really, really was.
Oh my gosh.
It was a hard couple years in so many ways, physically, emotionally, parents. My own stuff with my marriage was really
Yeah.
coming up more and more. And it was a very, very heavy season. I was going through my faith deconstruction at this time. There was a lot of heaviness that
Yeah.
was swirling around me at one
Yeah.
time.
And I
Yeah.
want to dive into that because that's something you and I both share as well. And
Mhm.
I think we talked about this at dinner, I think the last night before you left, where we both discussed that, organized religion is kind of no longer for us. Spirituality is, but it's just not in a way that we were used to. And you've had to step away from religion as you knew it.
Mhm.
Where did that come from? That moment where you said, I can't do this anymore. Was there something that happened or just an aha, or what was it for you?
Well, that's such a good question and a tricky one for me to answer because when you're raised in something and trying your whole life to participate, and that was me earnestly for my whole adult life. I really was engaged and identified as a Christian and was practicing in all of the ways that you would think. Regular church attendance through my whole adult years and all of it. And after my parents' divorce, probably about a year into the aftermath, I just was in such a cynical place with everything, examining all of those childhood things. And my faith was just inextricably linked with all of that. And I got to a point where I could no longer be in a church setting, in a church service. I just remember thinking, I cannot stand here and sing along. I don't want to be here. And so I removed myself from attending. And what followed was a difficult couple years as I tried to figure out what is happening here. What can I still believe? What don't I believe? Am I going to go to church? Am I not going to go to church? Deconstruction is a difficult, messy, and very scary process. It is scary to really reevaluate the beliefs you grew up with. I mean, and particularly in the Christian faith, I mean, you're talking about matters of salvation and heaven and hell as you were taught to believe. And it is very scary to start to question that and to realize that maybe you don't believe what you always had believed. I used to look at people that were deconstructing, to be honest, somewhat judgmentally as a Christian. And I was like, oh, they're just choosing to go astray. Every time I judge someone, I always end up being humbled because I find myself in that same situation. And I've learned my lesson, but
Yeah.
I find myself in this place and I'm realizing it's incredibly scary and brave, really, to examine your beliefs and realize that maybe there's been some change there. It was a process. It was not a one moment thing for me. But once I gave myself permission to stop attending church, just a lot continued to come up and things that I've kept wrestling with, and things keep coming up. I mean, it's really an ongoing process to examine religious beliefs because they run so deep, particularly when you were brought up in them.
Yeah.
So there's always things to unpack and think, what do I really think about that? But I do feel like I'm in a place of peace now with where I am. And I've told people this. I wish someone would have told me when I was young, this works for some people. This expression of the Christian faith does work for some people and it's beautiful, but it doesn't work for everybody. And if you're one of those people it doesn't work for, then there's this other space that you can go to and it's
Sure.
fine and it's safe and it's okay to be in that group. And I'm just finally realizing that at almost 40 years old that, oh, there's another place I can go that feels so much better to me. And I don't have to stay in these rooms, hypothetical rooms, that
Yes.
just don't fit me anymore.
Yeah.
I've tried to fit into those for way too long.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. The thing about it, it's like another expectation of us. And if we had a chance to really pull back and see what we really truly believe, it's not very far off. Like, I still believe in a higher power. I still believe in something that's greater than us. But I also believe it's not some singular individual up there in a beard looking down. For me, it's the patriarchy of it all and the
Yeah.
he. And that seems so constructed to me that I don't understand that piece. And so, not to get into all of it, but there's so much that I realized later that doesn't feel right anymore. That doesn't feel okay with me. I did the same thing, pulled back. I'm still needing help, but I just look at it in a very different way. So I get all of that when you're saying, because I did the same thing, and my kids do their thing. My husband do his thing. They still go to church, and I remove myself. I don't go either. Have you done the same? As your family still go to church, or like, how has that affected your family?
Yeah, that's been very tricky for me because I can have space for my own journey, but when it comes to how I'm affecting my children, that is very hard for me. I started attending church again for a while because I was worried about the influence on my kids. And that was so hard for me because I thought, well, a good mother goes to church with her children. And recently, my husband and I had a conversation about how we were going to address this as a family. And we decided that honesty is the best policy. Our kids are not well served by us hiding and trying to pretend. So we sat them down and said, Dad's still going to go to church. That's where he's at on his journey. I'm not going to go to church, and here's why. And our kids have the choice of whether or not they want to go to church or not. And sometimes they choose to go and sometimes they don't. And that's where we're at, which feels both a very good and authentic place to be. But also, if I'm being honest, it feels a little bit scary because that's just not how I grew up at all. So it feels like we're kind of in uncharted territory, but there's parts of the way that I grew up that I wish were different. More honesty, more authenticity would have been, I think, a good thing for me.
It's hard for me too. So I get it. Yeah. My kids know, and I've told my kids what I believe, my viewpoints on it. You do your journey, that you figure out what was right for you. And I think someday they may come to a different conclusion as well, but that's their journey. And I wish I had the freedom when I was a kid. I mean, I remember being forced to go to church every Wednesday for confirmation classes. But then here, I'm watching my parents live a life that was completely not that way. I mean, that's a big part of why I struggle with religion is people go to church and say they're religious and they believe in God and the whole thing. And then I see what they do in their personal life and how they act towards each other. I don't know. It was really hard for me to reconcile with a lot of that, the behavior I saw than what you said you were on a daily basis. That topic could be a whole podcast in itself, but you did. Hey friends, want to take a quick second to point out a product that I'm using on a daily basis called Perfect Amino. It's by Body Health, and it's one of my favorite supplements. It's composed of pure essential amino acids, the building blocks of protein, in a form and ratio that's up to 99% utilized, but without the caloric impact and without breaking a fast. It's the one protein source that provides the exact ratio of essential amino acids needed by the human body to synthesize new protein and collagen without excess amino acids. I use this product to help me maximize my workouts and hit my protein goals for the day. And now you can get 20% off your order with the link listed at the bottom of my show notes, with lots of flavors to choose from, like strawberry, mixed berry, lemon lime, mocha, chocolate, vanilla, and even unflavored if none of those are your jam. And don't miss out on their seasonal option right now, pumpkin spice. And they've got lots of other products too, like creatine, electrolytes, superfood powders, greens powders, and so much more. Again, that's Perfect Amino by Body Health, and you can get 20% off your entire order when you use the link in my show notes. Now, back to the show. But you did mention your husband and your relationship, and I know that you talk a lot about this on Instagram, so I'm not pulling anything out of the blue here, but tell me about coming to this realization that you guys needed to work on things. Was there an area that you struggled with specifically, or was it just in general? It's like, what was it that told you got things to work on?
Yeah, I would say I became aware that our marriage had significant issues probably about 10 years into our marriage. But the origin of those issues go way back to the very foundation, very beginning of our relationship and our marriage. So the foundation of our relationship was built on very shaky ground. And neither one of us really knew that or had the wisdom or the clarity at the time. I mean, we were 20 when we got engaged, 19 when we started dating. Looking back, having the wisdom and perspective I have now, I can see that there were some really serious things that were missed, I mean, for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we get married with this really kind of shaky foundation, and we just start building a life together and having the kids and doing the church thing. And about 10 years in, I think the pain really started to become pretty pronounced in our dynamic. And we had a few stints in counseling along the way. It was kind of Band-Aid fixes.
Sure.
Would get a little bit better, but nothing really felt like it was really addressed or healed. And I know now that's because I wasn't really ready to be fully honest with my experience in our marriage. And I think until you're really willing to get honest, and I call it brutal honesty because it can be very painful to get that honest. But if you're not willing to get to that place of radical honesty, nothing is really going to change. So we walked with a major limp in our marriage for 18 years. And it got to a point, it got worse and worse to the point where, I mean, I couldn't keep going with the way that our dynamic was. It was so unhealthy that it became toxic to each other.
Yeah.
And got to a point where we were having regular conversations about, are we going to make it? Are we going to have to end our marriage? Which for me just felt, when we first started having those conversations, it was just overwhelming grief that I already felt at even just having to have the conversation.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a life where I was divorced. I couldn't imagine it. But for our healing journey to really begin, I had to imagine a life where I was divorced, because that's the point that it got to, was this either needs to get healed or we're going to need to get a divorce.
Yeah.
So the Panama trip really changed my life. It was just a real turning point for me to not abandon myself any longer. And I came back from that trip a fortified woman. And the Panama trip didn't cause me to separate, but I came back a changed woman. I really was committed to no longer abandoning myself. And that included abandoning myself in my marriage. So I came back fueled in a different way. And I was also in therapy at this time. So it was a multi-pronged approach. It wasn't just this Panama trip. You know, I had a big epiphany, but I did come back sort of strengthened in myself. And it took me finding my own strength in order to stand up for the change that I knew our marriage needed.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't been strong in myself, I would have never been able to do what I did, which was ask for a separation. I didn't know if we were going to make it, but I knew that if we had any chance of making it at all, this had to happen.
Yeah.
So I asked for a separation, and I am so glad that I did, because we were at that place of, we can't continue in this way. So we're either going to get healthy or we're going to get a divorce.
Yeah.
And the separation was critical for us to actually begin our healing journey. If we had stayed together and kept trying to work on it, we would be stuck in the exact same patterns and on our exact same cycle. And for us, we needed something drastic to really get our stuff in order and to really work on ourselves. So we started an independent healing journey at that point, where he did individual work, I did individual work. And pretty quickly we realized into our separation, I mean, we physically separated. We got separate living arrangements and took turns at our house with our kids. And it was a devastating process to go through that. It was awful in every sense of the word. But I had such a peace throughout that process that I was doing the right thing, and that I was actually doing the right thing for my marriage. This was not a separation in terms of like, oh, we'll go see other people. This was we need to work on this and we need to be separate to do it. So I look back on that with a real peace. And I'm really thankful that I made the choice that I made, because where we are now is a completely different marriage than we had.
Wow.
We were separated for 4 months. So that could be a long time or a short time, depending on how you look at it. But we did a lot of work during that time, individual counseling. About a month and a half in, 6 weeks into our separation, we started couples work together, and we basically started dating again. And pretty quickly we're like, we love each other.
Yeah.
We want this to be healthy. And we built a new foundation. We had to tear down our old marriage, truly
Yes.
tear it down all the way to the very foundation. And we had to
Yep.
rebuild something new. That's
Yeah.
how we had to go about it.
Yeah. Do you think part of the, I'm going to say problems you had, because this has been ongoing for 18 years, but do you feel like some of it's tied to the fact that you weren't able to be the true person you wanted to be because you were showing up in a way that wasn't as authentic to yourself? And then now that you are finally becoming that person, was your spouse like, hold on, I don't know who this person is. What's going on? And then they were fighting against it. Was that part of it? This changing and growing of yourself, it does affect the people that are around you. Was that an impact?
It definitely does. I think that I would describe it more as I was codependent in my marriage. And I think part of that starts from the constructs I was given for what a Christian wife and mom
Yeah.
looks like in
Yeah.
my home, as well as getting married so young. And in that relationship, I took on a codependent role. So part of my change and part of me becoming more my authentic self has been coming into a place of power and realizing that codependence is not healthy for me. And it's actually not healthy for him either.
Yes.
And so me stepping out of a codependent role has definitely caused some change in our dynamic. But I will say, to his credit, the more me that I become, the more he loves me. He really does. So he's not like, get back in that box you used to be.
That's right.
But he celebrates me being who I am, which is wonderful.
That's great. Yeah.
But there are times when change is hard and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So sometimes with my Substacks or what I'm doing on Instagram, he's like, what's going to come out this week? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. He's been really
That's good.
supportive.
Yeah. Because I think there's always that worry, the more that you work on yourself, like, are you veering away rather than enhancing who you are? Is it something that's going to drive you the other direction? If you can't change other people, but if you're doing all this work on yourself and they don't have any interest in doing that, it does tend to cause some issues. You're going to have at some point a realization that one's either taken off in one direction or headed the path a lot farther. And there's only so long you can wait for them to kind of catch up a little bit too,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I tend to be the very aggressive grower in our dynamic, and he's more content to be more where he is and where things are. And I've had to also learn to really appreciate that about him.
Yeah.
And there's an ease to him that I actually find very inspiring. So I think we're a good yin and a yang, but I know what you mean. Like when I'm like, grow, grow, grow. And there can be a little bit of a tension there.
Yeah. I'll read this great book. He's like, I hate reading. I'm like, I don't want to read that book. I'm like, oh God, if you read that book, it'd be really great for you. Because you can see it because you know what it did for you. So it's hard to sort of bite your tongue a little bit. But
sounds very familiar. Yeah.
We didn't talk about Panama at all in the midst of this, and this is kind of towards the end here. But what made you say yes to go to Panama? Because if you're not used to saying yes to yourself and holding yourself back to do this big trip, because that's what I had to do too. I was in that same boat of like, I've never done a big trip like this before, ever. Never gone on a retreat, anything, especially to a place like Panama. So what was it for you that was able to say, yeah, I'm doing this?
Well, I think that I had done a meditation class with Katie Rexing, who was our retreat host. I had done a meditation class with her about 2 years before that trip. And ever since then, that even saying yes to that thing, which was a much smaller yes, it cultivated within me just a little awareness of wanting to show up in my own life. So I think I had been starting to take baby steps ever since the meditation class to show up in my own life, to say yes to the things that I wanted to do, follow my desires in small ways. And I had been building that little by little. And when she rolled out the Panama trip, something in me just lit up and I felt that spark of, I want to do that. But I sat on it. I sat on it for months and I would watch her keep promoting it. And I would think I want to do that, but I'm hesitant to pull the trigger on it. And I waited till a few weeks before the trip. And it finally got to that point. It just kept coming up and it kept resonating in my spirit every time I would see it. And I got to that point where I just knew, I'm like, this is for me. This is for me. And that's why I'm feeling this way, is this thing is for me. And I need to say yes to the things that are for me. So I said yes to it. I went, and it was so transformative for me that week. And being with those women, I had never been in a women's group like that was not in a religious context.
Sure.
So for me, it was particularly profound. And I experienced so much love and warmth that I had never felt before in a group of women.
Mm-hmm.
And it really nourished me, and it really changed me. So I left that retreat thinking it totally reinforced the idea that I say this phrase all the time: what's for you is for you. And if it's resonating with you, that means it's for you, and you should pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. That Panama trip was a great example of saying yes to something that resonated with me.
Yeah.
And it's just encouraged me to pay attention to that resonance when it hits and go for it. Because if I hadn't have gone to Panama, I probably wouldn't have come back strengthened in myself, and I wouldn't have been able to start my marriage on a healing path, and I wouldn't have connected with you. And, it's just the ripple effect of all these things that happen when you say yes to what's for you.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is really just the beginning. Honestly, when you think about saying yes to something like that, then the yeses become easier. And then those experiences become more. And then you get to have, I just think it's a richer, fuller life, because you are now listening to that little voice that says, yes, this feels good, or what that feels like in your body. You're paying attention to that, because you're going to say, oh, this feels similar to that. This feels like the thing. And when you start opening yourself more of those opportunities, I just feel like you become more of who you're supposed to be. Right?
Totally. Yes. I feel like I am a different person now that I notice those things and I say yes to them, and I pay attention to what I want to do and what's speaking to me. And it's just a different way to live. And it's so much more fun and fulfilling and exciting. And I wake up excited about the things I have going on in my life now, where I used to not wake up feeling excited about anything.
Yes.
Nothing going on.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I wanted you on the podcast, because you are now living this life that I call the odd life, because you're now awake to who you are. You're awake to what feels good in your life. You're living well. You're taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, the whole thing. And you're empowered. Like, you're making choices. You're doing hard things. I mean, I just think about you being able to come back and say, we need to separate. I mean, that is so huge. And then being able to know that it's for the right thing, and it's either going to push us the right direction, or it's going to tell us, yes, you need to be divorced, but you were making things happen. And that is empowerment in action right there. So again, this is why I wanted to have you on, because I think your story and being able to share all these different parts of your life that you have gone through, you have arrived at a place in your life where you can look at it and go, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And this feels good finally. This finally feels like I'm in a good place. Like, you're just now starting the journey, which is so amazing, because now look at all the things you get to look forward to, because now you live in this way.
Right. Yeah. It's the start of just a totally new chapter of my life that feels completely different. And your life really can change. That's the really encouraging news.
Yeah. Well, I just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you for all that I'm watching you do, and what you're discovering about yourself, and all the hard things you've tackled, because none of this is easy. I mean, going through the physical things you went through, then your parents' divorce, and going through the childhood you had to, now dealing with your marriage and hitting it head on. I mean, those are all very hard things.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with a lot of grace and a lot of vulnerability, because you're sharing about a lot of these things now on your Instagram account. And I'm just really proud of you for showing up, not just for yourself, but for other women that are looking for a source of strength, or maybe even just someone that's, hey, I've been there. I know what it feels like. Sometimes that's all we need, is someone to just walk with us through things and just know that I've got you. I've been there. Hey, I'll hold space for you because I've been there. I think that's what sisterhood and friendship can be about right there, is just holding space for other people and being with them when they're going through hard things. And I feel like that's sort of what you're doing when you're showing up in your account, is just, hey, this is what I've gone through and this is what I'm doing. And you're allowing people to see all of you, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
It's very fun and therapeutic for me to show up there and just kind of open my heart to people. And if it resonates, great. And I've had a lot of really amazing exchanges with women in the DMs, and that's very satisfying as well. I love doing that.
For sure. And
Yeah.
I'll link to all your stuff, your Instagram, and then also your Substack. I love
Thank
reading your
you.
Substack. You're a very, very good writer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're a very good writer. And the way that you present everything is just enough to get people to feel what they need to feel and also resonate with you. And you write it so very well. I don't know how long you've been writing, but I'm very impressed with how you express yourself in words. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's been on the back burner for a long time, but it's
Yeah.
always been there, and it's popped up at different seasons. And now I'm like, it's really time to just say, this is part of what I do. I write, and it feels really good.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see where Mallory goes from here, where
you.
you take
Thank
off.
you.
I love watching you online, and I think that what you've done in a short amount of time that I've known you, you've done so much. I've like really have grown a ton. And I look forward to seeing what's next for you and all the fun things you're going to get involved in. The last thing I'm going to ask is, what is one thing right now that's helping you feel awake, well, and empowered?
Playing Mahjong.
Yes.
Learning to play Mahjong. It is so much fun. I have never played a game like that before. And it's social. I play with 3 other women.
Yeah.
We meet every Monday night. And it feels like such a great form of self-care to get out of the house, be with other women, play a game. It checks so many boxes.
Nice.
And it's something that had been on my radar for actually a couple years. I'm like, what is this Mahjong thing that keeps coming up? And we finally got a group together, got a teacher to teach us how to play. And it's been so life-giving and so fun. So
perfect.
Yes.
Well, Mallory, I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. I just can't wait to see what's coming next for you for your Substack and on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Hallie. I love chatting with you today.
You bet. Okay, we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this episode either helpful, inspiring, entertaining, or just made you feel less alone. Or maybe all of those things. If so, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a friend, as well as on your social media. And if I dare ask for more, to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You see, the more reviews we have, the more people we can reach, and the bigger the Odd Life community can become. You guys are the best. I can't wait to chat again next week, so we'll see you then.